Yeah, hi, buddy. This is Hec. If you like the content for Hector Politics, like and subscribe. I don't have my comments on because I don't know. I got too many. The reason I don't have my comments on because I got too many trolls, so I just decided that I'm gonna just disable the comments. Yeah, but like and subscribe to Hector's News and Politics. Well, just Hector Politics now. I shorten it. Yeah, more updated news, breaking news, U.S. politics, and just U.S. news and world news. Thank you. Cheers. Oh, hey everybody. This is Hector's News and Politics. I just want to mention, yeah, two U.S. troops killed in U.S. troops killed in Jordan.
Escalations in the Middle 26 past with this breaking news amid new escalations in the Middle East. In just the last few minutes, we have learned 2 U.S. troops were killed in Jordan yesterday as U.S. Central Command and partners defended against Iranian ballistic missiles and drone attacks. Those names have not yet been released. Also breaking news at this hour, the Iranian Supreme Leader releasing a scathing statement after a seventh straight night of U.S.
Yep, two U.S. Soldiers killed. This. Why isn't this popping up? So I don't know why this article isn't popping up. There you go. Yeah, two U.S. soldiers killed and one missing.
Just going to bring you some breaking news now. A statement from CENTCOM about the recently fallen and also missing U.S. service members. Well, the statement reads the following. On July the 17th, 2 U.S. service members in Jordan were killed in action as U.S. Central Command and partner forces defended against Iranian ballistic missile and drone attacks. Additionally, 1 service member is currently missing in action. 4 American service members were medically evacuated to Jordan hospitals, and they have since been discharged. Other personnel who were evaluated for minor injuries have returned to duty, and out of respect for the families, CENTCOM will withhold additional
Thanks for being with us here on Live Now from Fox. I'm your host, Christina Evans. Again, we do want to continue on with these top stories. We just brought this to you as breaking news a short time ago, but we want to provide some more context as the U.S. Central Command has released this statement just a short while ago, speaking on 2 service members who have been killed in Jordan, saying they've been killed in action as the U.S. Central Command and partner forces defended against Iranian ballistic missiles and drone attacks. Additionally, 1 service member is currently missing in action. 4 American service members were medically evacuated to Jordanian hospitals. They have since been discharged. Other personnel who were evaluated for minor injuries have returned to duty. Right now, saying that out of the respect for their families, CENTCOM at this time is going to be withholding additional information, including the identities of those fallen warriors, until 24 hours after the next of kin have been notified. And so, for some additional information here, our partners there at Reuters said this: Iran launched more attacks on Washington's both allies in Jordan on Saturday. This came after a 7th straight day and night of U.S. strikes on Iranian military targets, escalating the war just 1 week after the ceasefire. Kuwait, we know, has Okay, guys, stand by here. We've got the breaking news to get to right now out of the Middle East. Some new news from CENTCOM here. We've got Lucas Tomlinson, who is live in Tel Aviv for us. Lucas, what are you hearing?
Aisha, we've just learned from the U.S. military central command in charge of all U.S. forces in the Middle East that 2 American service members have been killed and 1 is still missing after an Iranian missile attack on a base in Jordan. Additionally, we've learned that 4 American service members were wounded. They were transferred to Jordanian hospitals and have since been discharged. This all coming out last night after at least 2 intermediate-range ballistic missiles fired from Iran hit a base in Jordan not long after U.S. Air Force personnel had arrived, part of President Trump's reinforcements, an F-16 squadron as well as an F-35 squadron. Of course, U.S. Air Force personnel are deployed throughout the Middle East. We've been heavily focused on the 2 U.S. Navy aircraft carrier strike groups that are in the Arabian Sea. The Air Force isn't as public about where it deploys its forces, but Jordan is a major hub, along with bases here in Israel, also Qatar, UAE, and of course in Saudi Arabia. But Jordan has been a major hub. So once again, Aisha, 2 American service members have been killed. 1 is still missing, and 4.
Yes, 4 injured, 2 killed, and 4 injured, 1 missing, 2 killed.
Were wounded in an Iranian ballistic missile attack on a base in Jordan last evening. It is the first American casualties in months since those 6 U.S. Army personnel were killed in the early days of the war in the attack on Kuwait.
Yeah, terrible news this afternoon, Lucas.
Here, let's get right to breaking news. The Pentagon says 2 U.S. service members are dead and a 3rd is missing after Iranian attacks in Jordan. It comes as the U.S. and Iran continue to trade attacks. And in a new message today, Iran's supreme leader is vowing, quote, unforgettable lessons for the U.S. as Tehran suspends its commitments in the peace deal with the U.S. Let's bring in ABC's Stephen Portnoy, along with ABC News contributor and former CIA senior operations officer Daryl Blocker for more. Stephen, I want to start with you. What more do we know about these U.S. service members? 16 American troops have now died since the start of this war.
This is a major escalation, Ike. The first U.S. combat deaths in the Iran war since its earliest weeks. U.S. Central Command has a statement in which it says 2 U.S. service members were killed in Jordan as the U.S. defended against Iranian ballistic missiles and drones. The statement says a 3rd service member is said to be missing in action, and 4 more service members were so badly wounded in yesterday's attacks that they had to be medically evacuated to hospital.
There's really nothing else. Just, I don't really see too many videos on this lady post.
2 American service members were
That's way too, it's too low. I'll just watch this pondering politics video.
And a 3rd is missing after Iran struck an airbase in Jordan, bringing the total number of publicly confirmed American troop casualties on Donald Trump's watch due to a war that he started to 15. And we have to talk about this as the hot war escalates. So let's jump right on in. Breaking: 2 U.S. troops killed and 1 missing after Iran strikes base in Jordan. We're going to read the official statement from the United States Central Command. On July 17th, 2 U.S. service members in Jordan were killed in action as U.S. Central Command and partner forces defended against Iranian ballistic missile and drone attacks. Additionally, 1 service member is currently missing. 4 American service members were medically evacuated to Jordanian hospitals. They've since been discharged. Other personnel who were evaluated for minor injuries have returned to duty. Out of respect for the families, CENTCOM will withhold additional information, including the identities of the fallen warriors, until 24 hours after the next of kin have been notified. So again, this is absolutely tragic with the hot war resuming. Further more lives are put at risk, not just civilians in the Persian Gulf and in the Middle East, but American service members as well. And obviously, we don't yet know the fate of the missing 3rd service member. This comes, of course, after Iran issued a chilling warning to, quote, stay away from U.S. military bases as strikes escalate. Media also talking about this. Iran issued an ominous warning Saturday, urging people to stay away from U.S. military bases in the Middle East amid an escalation of hostilities in the region. Quote, in response to U.S. attacks of aggression and threats from terrorist groups, Iran has launched missile strikes targeting Iraq and Bahrain. The Islamic Republic of Iran Broadcasting announced on X, quote, people should stay away from U.S. bases. In another post, they encouraged people to, quote, shut down U.S. military bases on their own to keep them safe from Iranian missiles. The official state broadcaster claimed Iran launched missiles against U.S. bases in Bahrain, Kuwait, Jordan, and Iraq. U.S. officials have often dismissed Iran's announcements as false. We now know that is not true, and again, 2 additional American service members have been killed, and a 3rd is missing. The latest declarations follow a CBS News report, which cited multiple sources that claimed multiple U.S. service members were injured in recent attacks on military bases in Jordan. And again, we have now confirmed that 2 of those injuries resulted in casualties. No fatalities were reported from the attacks. 14 American service members have died since the Iran war started in late February. So 13 American service members previously reported. Media is now confirming 14, and then you add the 2 that have since been confirmed just within the past few minutes by the United States Central Command. Now the number appears to be 16 American service members killed on Donald Trump's watch because of a war that he started. The U.S. has launched strikes against Iran daily for the last week, following officials blasting Iran for breaking a temporary peace agreement by continuing to target and attack ships through the Strait of Hormuz, where roughly 20% of the world's oil supply moves through. The U.S. launched its latest batch of strikes against Iran on Friday evening after officials denied Iran's claim that they attacked sites in Syria, Kuwait, Oman, Bahrain, and Jordan. Demetrius Martinez, the CEO of Athens headquarters Americas, warned this week that ships in the Strait of Hormuz were facing an increasingly dangerous environment. Quote, we see the reduction of the volume of transit ships killed by the United States in a double-tap Tomahawk missile strike that the Trump administration is actively trying to cover up. They're trying to thwart and bury an investigation into this grave war crime. And thousands of civilians in Iran and Lebanon and Israel have died as a consequence of this war of choice. So again, we will definitely be keeping an eye on this situation because again, we don't know the fate.
Were killed in Today, I'm Jose Diaz-Boy. We're coming on the air with breaking news on the war with Iran. The U.S. Central Command says 2 U.S. service members were killed in action in Jordan yesterday, writing it happened as they, quote, defended against Iranian ballistic missiles and drone attacks. CENTCOM adding that 1 service member is still missing right now and that 4 others were brought to hospitals but have since been released. I want to go to Julie Sirkin, who is in Bridgewater, New Jersey, traveling with the president. Julie, what else do we know?
And it comes after 7 days of consecutive strikes that the U.S. had launched against Iran in Iran around the Strait of Hormuz. The memorandum of understanding fell apart earlier this week. The president essentially tearing up the ceasefire with it because he said Iran had violated it even before this week began. These counterstrikes, unfortunately, as you mentioned, leading to the unfortunate outcome that we have right now of 2 American service members were killed. Iran had been attacking and targeting U.S. bases around the region, which I know you will get into more later. But so far, when it comes to the president here in Bedminster today, quiet on this issue, though previously, Jose, we know he had said even 1 service member killed is too many. The question now becomes how the U.S. responds. This tit for tat of strikes, perhaps the president decides to escalate it. We know he already was about next week targeting bridges, civilian infrastructure, additional areas in which the U.S. can make it more painful for the Iranian regime after the people there, of course, are going to suffer. And that is exactly what Iran, via state media, has been saying as well, that in some of these U.S. strikes, Iranians were killed. Now, those reports have not been confirmed by the White House. The White House has not said anything about those reports. But so far, of course, now the unfortunate news that 2 service members were killed, another missing in action, and those 4, as you mentioned, medically evacuated, but so far have been discharged after a ballistic missile attack from Iran against the U.S. base there. Now, in addition to the president's potential response here, of course, this begs the question, Jose, of what happens next in this conflict. Americans back home wanted to end. The president wanted to bring it to an end. But of course, now, with more service members killed, bringing the total during this multi-month conflict from 14 now to 16, the president may want to respond more forcefully, Jose.
Julie Sirkin, thank you very much. I want to bring in NBC News Chief International Correspondent Keir Simmons. He is in.
Yeah, that's one of the things I want to mention. That now 16 U.S. service members killed in total since this Iran war began, and 4 missing. Oh no, 2 missing. Oh no, 1 missing and 4 injured. I wanted to mention that there's 1 missing service member and 4 injured.
Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, at this hour. This is the first time that Americans have been killed or even injured since that ceasefire was signed in April.
That's right, Jose, and this will be devastating news for those families. We don't know who those families are yet. U.S. Central Command says it is holding back the identities of these service personnel until their families are informed. Of course, inevitably, it will put the spotlight on the blood and treasure that the U.S. is losing in this conflict with Iran. It may also, though, strengthen many people's resolve. It comes on a day when the new supreme leader in Iran, Mujtaba Khamenei, issued a statement just hours ago, actually, in which he vowed a forceful response to those increasing strikes by U.S. Central Command inside of Iran. We've already seen those Iranian responses in 7 separate countries.
26 past with this breaking news amid new escalations in the Middle East. In just the last few minutes, we have learned 2 U.S. troops were killed in Jordan yesterday as U.S. Central Command and partners defended against Iranian ballistic missiles and drone attacks. Those names have not yet been released. Also breaking news at this hour, the Iranian Supreme Leader releasing a scathing statement after a 7th straight night of U.S. strikes. And it reads in part, the violation of the agreement once again proved the worthlessness and invalidity of the U.S. president's signature.
No, they already. Oh, I know they attacked some warehouse in Moscow. I forgot to mention this. Maybe I'll watch this video.
I'm
We have some breaking news to share. Unfortunately, it's not the good kind for the United States of America. 2 more American service members have been killed in action. Another one is missing. 4 additional had been hospitalized. Allegedly, they've been taken out. Now, if we can trust anything from the Central Command, this is the one thing that is, if you've been watching our channel for any time, you know has just been driving me more crazy than anything else because of the abject lack of interest of our senior government officials on the results of their actions, reflecting back on to our soldiers. They're almost inconsequential. As a matter of fact, I think the only consideration for our soldiers now is, and you can just pretty much count on this, there's going to be a response. And so far, we haven't seen it. Gary, if you can just keep on checking back and forth.
Here, let's get right to breaking news. The Pentagon says 2 U.S. service members are dead and a third is missing after Iranian attacks in Jordan. It comes as the U.S. and Iran continue to trade attacks. And in a new message today, Iran's supreme leader is vowing, quote, unforgettable lessons for the U.S. as Tehran suspends its commitments in the peace deal with the U.S. Let's bring in ABC's Stephen Portnoy along with ABC News contributor and former CIA senior operations officer Darrell Blocker for more. Stephen, I want to start with you. What more do we know about these U.S. service members? 16 American troops have now died since the start of this war.
This is a major escalation, Ike. The first U.S. combat deaths in the Iran war since its earliest weeks. U.S. Central Command has a statement in which it says 2 U.S. service members were killed in Jordan as the U.S. defended against Iranian ballistic missiles and drones. The statement says a third service member is said to be missing in action, and 4 more service members were so badly wounded in yesterday's attacks that they had to be medically evacuated to hospitals, but they have since been discharged. In total,
I'm back.
some 427 U.S. service members have been wounded and 16 have now lost their lives in the Iran war, Ike.
Darrell, what kind of impact do you see this escalation having on the war moving forward?
Well, I think our partners in the region, whether they're in Jordan or whether in Bahrain or the other countries that Iran is attacking, are now going to realize that it's not going to go away, that Iran needs to be responsible in its actions and not target civilians. Of course, these are not civilians, but still civilians support all of our presence abroad, and hopefully no civilians were lost in this action.
And Darrell, what could this mean for more U.S. troops in the region rather?
I wouldn't think that they would increase the number of troops, of course, other than replacing the personnel that were just lost. But I don't see a grand influx of troops into Jordan, perhaps closer into where Iran is or on ships abroad. But I don't think they should increase numbers.
And Stephen, can you take us through these latest strikes in the Middle East and what we're hearing from Iran?
Well, today, Iran's new supreme leader put out a social media message warning of what he called unforgettable lessons for America. Iran's deputy foreign minister said today his country has suspended its commitments under the memorandum of understanding that President Trump signed last month. In the past couple of days, Iran has been targeting civilian infrastructure in Kuwait. The Iranians have struck water and power plants in Kuwait. An Iranian general said the other day that his country might move from what he called a phase of retaliation to the offensive phase of the war. Today, Kuwait's state-run oil company said one of its facilities was hit. Here in Washington, the White House said this week that Iran was still talking to the U.S., but 10 days now after the president declared the ceasefire over, there is no sign that the two sides are heading back to the table for talks. And now, with the fighting substantially increasing, 2 more Americans have been killed.
All right, Stephen Portnoy and Darrell Blocker, thank you for the analysis.
Grip, stability, precision. That's the essence of driving. Often